Hey there, I'm Julie Tam, managing broker of LYN Realty in Houston. Thank you so much for joining me for Smarter Real Estate weekly on Wednesdays, where I take you on some of my real estate adventures and also arm you with practical strategies to be a smarter buyer, seller, tenant, or landlord. All right, today I'm continuing my series Tour of Greater Houston. In past videos, I've told you kind of about Greater Houston in general, then I honed in on neighborhoods and areas that are inside the 610 loop, which is this circle, essentially a freeway of the 610 loop, which is really the inner loop of Houston, downtown being right there in the center. We have the next loop outside of that Beltway 8, and I'm gonna be talking about areas that are inside the Beltway but outside the 610 loop today. And basically kind of taking you through some different areas. I'm not going to be able to talk about every single neighborhood, obviously. That's beyond the scope of this video. And I also I'm not going to go into certain amount of detail with some neighborhoods if I don't know them as well, or just because, there's just no time to be talking about everything about the neighborhood. So certainly you can do more research on Google, for example. But I will be kind of talking about the highlights to give you an idea of what these areas are like in general. To give you a little bit of background, I was born and raised in Houston, and so I have known this city since the early 80s. Everything inside the loop, right, is close to town, and it used to be that outside the 610 loop, but inside the Beltway was considered the suburbs, because in the early days of Houston, that was already very far out. But of course, as you probably know, Houston has expanded and is a sprawling geographical area that's larger than some states combined. And so these areas outside 610 Loop, but inside the Beltway 8 are really not considered suburbs anymore. They are relatively near town. It's really the areas outside of Beltway 8 that people now consider the suburbs, and really Houston has gobbled up some other municipalities beyond that, like Katy and Woodlands and Sugarland. And even though they are their individual cities, they have their own city hall and other, things going on, but they're really part of Greater Houston. And when people say they're from Houston, they could be living in one of those suburbs. Now we have this, I think it's a new term because I didn't hear it until, more recently, is exurbs, which are beyond the suburbs, really in those, what used to be farmland, but now of course are turning into bustling master plan communities. So I will touch on those real true suburbs and exurbs in a future video, but today we're going to talk about still a little bit closer to town. So if you have any questions or feedback or comments, feel free to post or send me a message. And if you like this video, be sure to click like, and I really hope you'll subscribe and continue watching. Okay, so let's get started here. Right north of the 610 loop, here you've got the Aldine area and sort of the near northwest along, here's I-45 North, which is a freeway and interstate, also 59 or 69 as it's also called, and then 290 is the Northwest Freeway. And so really in these areas, you are getting areas that are starting to be gentrified because they are somewhat close to town. The gentrification that's been happening inside the loop is now branching out into these areas where older homes are getting torn down. Where there's empty land, builders are going in and developing and building new homes. Typically, they're going to be more either townhome or patio home style, so 3-4 stories, with roof decks, several in a row. For example, you'll see condos, new apartment buildings, but there's a lot of also, just homes that were built a few decades ago or so, and more middle to lower class areas. And over here on the east side, you kind of have this whole, like Galena Park, right near San Jacinto College, North Campus, Pasadena, South Houston. These are blue collar areas. You're close to Hobby Airport, which is where Southwest Airlines has been known for a long time to fly out of. That is a smaller of the two major airports, the big one being up in the northeast, IAH or Bush International Airport. Anyway, on the east side, even if you go beyond Sam Houston Tollway, obviously there's more neighborhoods, but people who live on the east side of the loop inside the Beltway, and of course people beyond, some of them actually work out in areas like Channelview and Baytown. Here you have, the water, things, areas that lead out to the Ship Channel and Galveston. And so folks that commute this way might live in Houston. You also have people who live beyond, even farther east, who commute into the eastern areas of Houston to work, and vice versa. Beaumont is another city, the next, not a major city, it's a small city, but the next, really a city that is on the map and bolded, which is out, east of Houston, about an hour east, give or take, given, whatever the traffic conditions might be. And then south of the loop here, along 288, you've got also homes in this area that are starting to come up. They are, homes that are typically more middle to lower class, but because the medical center area is just right here, a lot of people who are commuting there like this area. I had an investor recently, a set of investors who was looking in this area because of the proximity to the medical center. Here you're getting into the Four Corners area as well, Westbury and Willow Bend. There's a lot of remodeling going on of older homes that are, 50, 60 plus years old, and they're getting gutted. Sometimes the plumbing is getting, totally redone, things like that. Willow Meadows, okay. Brays Bayou runs along here. And north of Brays Bayou, you're going to have the famed areas of Meyerland and Bellaire. So part of Bellaire is actually inside the loop, right here in the southwestern quadrant of the loop, adjacent to Braeswood Place, which is another storied, high-end, nice neighborhood. And then part of Bellaire is outside the 610 loop. City of Bellaire, of course, it's its own city within Houston, surrounded completely by Houston. And some older homes from the 50s, for example. And I say older, that's by Houston standards, okay? I know like in other cities and states, like in the Northeast, homes are hundreds of years old. Well, you really don't get much of that here. Things are torn down, unfortunately. You're like old and useless by 50, so I'm getting there. I'm almost 40, so not quite there, but it's all relative. Now, Bellaire and Meyerland are flood-prone areas. Most of Bellaire and virtually all of Meyerland, or possibly all of Meyerland, I don't know if there's like a sliver that's not in the floodplain, but those are areas where folks, a lot of homes, especially the older ones, flooded during our major floods like Hurricane Harvey in 2017, and there were also a few floods before and after, within those few years surrounding Hurricane Harvey that were record-setting, and people had to either gut their homes and raise their homes up high to get above the floodplain, or they had to just tear down the home to build new. And believe it or not, even today, 4 years after Hurricane Harvey, there are still some homes that are sitting there just gutted down to the studs inside and haven't been touched because people either haven't figured out what they want to do with their home, or they just, just don't have the resources, whatever it is that they're just still sitting there. Maybe they want to do, they're holding, for something to happen, or they just eventually are starting to sell, these homes for other people to go ahead and move in and build out and, remodel and renovate. Okay, so down here, you've got really the Fondren Southwest area. Again, a little bit more of middle to lower class properties. This is the southwest part of the Sam Houston Tollway, Beltway 8. I feel like there's a mosquito biting me. I'm just itching. Anyway, 59 Southwest Freeway continues down like this. So basically, this is your area, Sharpstown. Sharpstown, back in the 80s, I remember growing up, really, like Sharpstown Mall was a place to be. There, was a Foley's there, and just, it was like the heyday, right? And Sharpstown was a decently nice neighborhood that has gone downhill in the couple of decades that followed gradually, but now it's starting to come back up. There's now an improvement district. They have done new signage, good marketing and that kind of visual stuff. And there's now starting to be some gentrification. So when you see older homes getting torn down and rebuilt as new ones, or older homes getting remodeled, getting a facelift, sometimes not even just from the inside, but also outside facade, they're changing the materials, they're repainting, they're adding on shutters or just cute things. That is already early signs of gentrification. So we really see improvement and appreciation over time. And also because it is relatively close to town. You are literally right beyond Meyerland, and like right here is Bellaire. You got Meyerland, Brayburn, and then boom, Sharpstown's right here. Gulfton, there's a high concentration of apartment complexes. It tends to be a little bit more middle to lower income. And I'm not dogging people who are of these economic classes. I'm just trying to give a sense of, the economics of Houston and where things are located and where things are going, because that's a huge part of, the city and where things are headed. But anyway, so yeah, you've got a lot of freeways coming together, makes it really convenient. 59, 610, West Park Tollway jets you out really fast, going east-west. And this area is also home to Houston's Chinatown. So on Bellaire Boulevard, literally from almost to 59, all the way to Beltway 8 and beyond is Chinatown. They call it Asia Town now because really it used to be dominated by Chinese restaurants primarily, but Vietnamese restaurants and stores and shops, grocery stores, all types of retail businesses, and also even offices and professional buildings, clinics like doctors and dentist offices of mainly Chinese and Vietnamese are really springing up along here. Primarily the Chinese between 59 and Beltway 8, and the Vietnamese beyond the Beltway. And then there's a little bit of other Asian stuff like Japanese, Korean, some Malaysian, and and whatnot sprinkled here and there, but it's really predominantly the Chinese Vietnamese area. And then there's a Mahatma Gandhi district, which is off Hillcroft, back in here. And that is where the Indian and Pakistani restaurants and grocery stores and retail, a lot of the clothing boutiques and things are. That's a huge concentration of that. Some other concentrations of Asia or Chinatown would be like in downtown, and you've got a lot of, actually there's little pockets of it in Northwest Houston, where there are population centers. There's stuff in Sugarland, of course, is very diverse. We'll talk about Sugarland in another episode of this Smarter Real Estate series. And then, of course, the Indian Pakistani, their businesses and restaurants and shops are also found in some of those similar areas, too, where you would find Chinatown. Plus out west and, in Sugarland, there's a huge Asian population in Sugarland. That's where you have the highest concentration of Asians in the entire greater Houston area, statistics show. So anyway, let's see, we talked about kind of all these areas here. If we go north of 59, now you're hitting the Galleria area. This is one of my favorite areas of town. So Galleria and Post Oak, they've really just changed that and made that so much higher end over time. It's always been a fun place. The Galleria is Houston's iconic mall. It's huge. There's like Galleria 1, 2, 3, 4. I've lost track of how many Gallerias there are now. And there's a big ice skating rink inside, right? So that's a unique feature. But now it's about all the surrounding areas too. There's so many great restaurants. There's the chains, and there's also the high end, the restaurants that are ranked, in the city, like top 100 type restaurants. And they've really made the streetscapes look so nice. I don't know if you zoom in on this video, if you can start to see some of the names, but, some really nice hotels. The Hines Waterwall Park is a good, you'll find that on TripAdvisor as a, tourist destination. So this is a place where actually it's very international. You see a lot of tourists and a lot of locals too from everywhere. So it's wonderful because it really, when you go there, you see a cross section of Houston, like literally inside the Galleria. And then of course in the areas surrounding. And yeah, the Post Oak, just like the way that they've done the street lights and the arches, over the intersections and everything are just really, quite stunning and beautiful, and it's just an exciting place to be. There are luxury high-rise condos, there are single-family homes, and just some really nice real estate and some a little bit older apartments, but everything is really well maintained for the most part in that area. Okay, so as we move up along San Felipe, there's more of that. This Woodway area, you've got Tanglewood. Really nice, very high end. We're talking like million plus, multi-million dollar homes on sprawling land. This is where you would find larger lots than you would typically find, especially as you go farther out west. Larger lots than you would say typically find, those kind of in-town congested areas inside the loop. And, you'll find the memorial villages, all these areas, like you've got Hunters Creek Village, Hedwig Village, Bunker Hill Village, Piney Point Village, all of that. I went to school at Second Baptist, which is, let's see where, Woodway and Voss, right here, in the middle of all that. But I didn't live in the riches of the city. I was out in the suburbs, and we lived a humble middle-class existence. You know, we're upwardly mobile, but back then that was our story. My parents worked very hard though. Okay, then as we head up toward I-10, this corridor is your Memorial area getting toward Memorial West, but also Spring Branch. So you've got a lot of exciting things happening up here. Spring Branch is home to some really good public schools where people really want to be over there. And there are areas up here where it's kind of like in the Heights where you've got like the car repair shop and stuff like that, you know, where it doesn't look so good. It's a little bit, you know, more blue collar, but then they're starting to do the, actually not starting to, for several years now, they've been tearing down older homes, building up nice new ones. One of the nicer neighborhoods, Westview Terrace, down here, you've got $1 million+ homes now. And then there are also the townhome or patio home, single family home style homes where you can, you know, buy in here for $300,000-$400,000, you know, for example. And Spring Valley, another nice area. And then this area right here, Memorial City. So you've got the mall and you've got City Center here, really great concentration of shopping and dining. And also they've got a little kind of a mini medical center here, Memorial Hermann Medical Center. So there's, you know, those types of facilities there and offices and whatnot. So really a nice area. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything down here. Yeah. Now, Energy Corridor is going to extend, it's basically kind of along the Beltway. And, you know, you've got areas, you know, essentially surrounding the western Beltway 8, you know, Sam Houston Tollway, west side. That is where a lot of people live who work in the energy sector because there are energy companies there. Of course, there are energy companies that have offices in downtown, for example, so people will commute in, but this is closer than living way out in the western suburbs, which some people do. But anyway, it's a good option. So I think I've covered kind of all the different quadrants in general. I'm sorry if I missed your neighborhood and didn't mention it. As I told you, I can't mention every single neighborhood. Houston is a huge city. But anyway, actually, I mentioned Four Corners. Let me see here. Yeah, more of it is actually on this. Let me see. Yeah, this area here. So I might have misspoken when I mentioned something earlier. I can't remember what I said. Anyway, hope all is forgiven there. So yes, hope this was helpful. Like I mentioned in a future video, I'm gonna go out into the suburbs and exurbs and talk about all of that and more. And so please stay tuned, and I hope I will see you again next week for Smarter Real Estate. Thank you so much for watching and have a great week.